Well, another program that we're really excited about, we just kicked off this year, is our Leadership Institute. And Clinton is a part of that, and so is Councilwoman Kirchner from Fredericksburg. And this is just a new program that we kind of dreamed up a few years ago. We're really excited with how it's been, but we're bringing elected officials and key staff together from across the Hill Country to really talk about shared challenges and opportunities, to think through how we're growing, what's working in one community that may, work or be replicable in other communities.
Welcome to Everything Real in Fredericksburg, from local government to economic development and real estate. If it's happening in Fredericksburg, Texas, we talk about it. Now your host, LeeAnn Bailey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Everything Real in Fredericksburg. I'm LeeAnn Bailey, a realtor here in town, and wanted to give our listeners a chance to get to know things that you may not always hear about that's going on in Fredericksburg, Gillespie County, and the region, but also get to know some characters around town. So today I'm glad to have Katherine Romans with Hill Country Alliance. Hi, Katherine.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for ever. It's not you, it's me. And so I'm like, I've got to get Katherine over here and let her talk about the amazing things you guys have been doing at Hill Country Alliance.
Well, I'm excited to be included in the cast of characters of Fredericksburg. That feels like a real honor. So Thank you.
Well, when I say cast of characters, and you look at some of the folks I've had, I always give Clinton, my husband Clinton, a hard time, and you know Clinton well. And so just so you know, the goal is to have more viewers than Clinton or downloads on the podcast. So I'm challenging you.
Right. Excellent.
So,
we can help with that.
Give Clinton a time whenever you meeting. So
fantastic.
So you're part of a really neat regional group, and y'all do some really neat things. And so I want you to start out, if you would please, tell us what Hill Country Alliance is, how you guys got started, what is your role, and just from there.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for having me. So I get to work for the Hill Country Alliance. I'm the executive director. I actually am on 10 years now. This year is my 10th year with the organization. And I started out doing landowner outreach in the Pedernales River Basin. So working here in Fredericksburg, in Johnson City, working with landowners to do good land stewardship work and with the hope of protecting the Pedernales River. So our organization, the Hill Country Alliance, was actually started around 20 years ago by a group of landowners, mostly outside of Bee Cave, so just outside of Austin, kind of west of the city of Austin. And these landowners came together because they were really concerned by the rate of growth and development that they were seeing coming out from the city of Austin and Bee Cave. They were worried about water issues, about the loss of agricultural lands and, those beautiful rolling hills and incredible views. They were worried about night skies and what that kind of unplanned and unmanaged growth was doing to our views of the night skies. So from those early, neighbors getting together back in 2004, 2005, the Hill Country Alliance has really grown into this region-wide organization. We work across 17 counties of Central Texas. So from Austin down to San Antonio, and then all the way west to Edwards County, to Junction, to Uvalde. And we really work across a bunch of different issue areas, all kind of at the nexus of how we are growing as a region, because we're growing like crazy.
We are.
And how we think about growth that can protect and even enhance our natural resources. So the lands, the waters, the night skies, and of course our rural communities. So places like Fredericksburg, we want to hold on to the charm that has been drawing people here for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I've met you probably 8 to 10 years ago. And so thank you for making me feel so old and all of a sudden it's just flown by, hasn't it?
Time flies.
God, when you say, okay, well, the organization's been here for 20 years, that's impressive. And it's a grassroots start. So you have all of these just individual landowners that have a common love for conservation and land stewardship. And we had Gordon Sauer on the podcast last, and he was talking about stewardship. And I said, I feel like land stewardship leads to legacy. And that's what, leaving a legacy of care for the land and for our grandkids and way
Absolutely.
further down.
Yeah. And what I love most about the Hill Country Alliance is we really do stick to that alliance mantra. We're not just a standalone organization that's going to be able to achieve the future for the Hill Country. We really are about bringing landowners, residents, visitors, businesses, elected officials together, because we all have an important role to play in the future of the region. And it is so much about the legacy we hand on to our kids, our grandkids. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Well, you manage it well, from what I can tell. You've got a big job, and I'm not sure that everyone probably knows all the partners. Well, you said you listed quite a few of them, but you're like a small fish in a big pond when it comes to all these decision makers. And I mean, you guys even and probably deal with a little bit of legislation too.
Yeah.
And lobbying, probably, where you're just trying to get more information out to decision makers, and rule makers. And so when I say a little fish in a big pond, it's just there's a lot to go after. You're yelling to a big crowd, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. And it can feel overwhelming because the pace of change that's happening in the Hill Country is incredible. We all recognize, how overnight our landscapes, our communities are changing. And that brings a lot of opportunity. That's jobs, that's economic growth, that's a lot of really good things. At the Hill Country Alliance, we want to make sure that we're minimizing the downsides of development. We're thinking about the long-term future of our water resources, that we're creating new places for people to recreate, to enjoy the Hill Country, that we're making it possible for, rural ranchers and farmers to be able to continue that livelihood, even as the cost of land is going up so rapidly. It's hard.
Well, you said something that stuck with me all of a sudden, and you said how things are changing, climate's changing. We're in a severe drought right now, and it is ugly, and nobody likes it. I know the rains are coming, I believe it. But talk to me about drought and what the Alliance is doing when it comes to a little bit more finer details, working on water and for long-term water usage and stuff like that, or conservation, not usage. We don't want to use it.
Right. How can we advance more conservation? Water is one of our most important programs. So we've got a couple of different program areas. We have a staffer that's really dedicated to water issues across the region. And so that means going to the Capitol and advancing interests, but also working with communities like Fredericksburg and others on how we can do the best we can to conserve the water that we have and stretch those water resources further to leave more for the environment, more for people. And so right now that means, especially when we're in drought, the city of Fredericksburg right now is in stage 4 drought. So that means, big cutbacks, especially on our outdoor irrigation. We like to talk about the fact that we all have a role to play when it comes to managing water during drought times, and cutting back on the amount of water that we're spraying on our landscapes is a big, big opportunity. In the summer months in Central Texas, we're using as much as 50% of our potable water is going to irrigate lawns and landscapes. So there's a lot that we can do to save water right there.
See, I think, to interject there for a moment, I've said it before on the podcast, but if anyone wasn't listening before, I think that the consumer may not know that the biggest water usage or the consumer of water is, outdoor landscape watering, not how long did I take a shower, which growing up, that was something that we learned, and we appreciate that and glad that you turn the water off now while you're brushing your teeth and you take a quick shower. But we've got to cut down on that outside usage, because that's where the bulk of it's going.
Yeah, for sure, especially during the summer months. The other thing we talk about is, as folks are moving to the region, as we're seeing new buildings go up, a lot of us think about that as new demand on water resources. And it really is. But if we were able to flip that, to think about every new building in the Hill Country as being a new supply of water, we could really start to get creative with basically creating more water supply. And so we talk about this in terms, we call it one water, but really it's about when we build a new school, for example, how are we thinking about capturing rainwater to use that for outdoor landscaping? How can we think about capturing air conditioning condensate? We all know that, especially in Central Texas, when it is so hot, our air conditioning is running nonstop. And so that can generate quite a bit of water resource that can help offset. So I've brought a bunch of visual aids. We do a lot of issue papers and reports. And so we've got this one called One Water in the Texas Hill Country that shows some of those examples that already exist of really innovative approaches to water management use, and really talks about how we can move forward thinking creatively about making our water work harder for us.
I like that. I have not seen that, so please don't take it.
Okay.
I want you to leave it.
It's for you.
But I'm going to take a look at it for a second. But one of the things that you just said that led to my next question is, there are a lot of folks moving into the Hill Country, Fredericksburg, Gillespie County, the region. If you hear Clinton Bailey talk at all, he talks about being in different groups where they say the I-10 corridor. Hays County is one of the fastest growing counties in Texas. And so I like what you said about when we look at the building, what can we do? But what else as a good neighbor and new building, new developers, what else is there that maybe a good neighbor could be doing?
Yeah. It's a great way to think about it, right? Because so long, thinking about the Hill Country as a really rural place where neighbors really know each other, they look out for each other. That's the kind of neighborly attitude that we want to continue pushing. So we talk a lot about being a good neighbor, about how we can really limit our footprint on the land and the water resources, and how really we can bring benefits through things like using native plants and native landscaping that provides habitat for our pollinators, for native flora and fauna. Thinking about protecting our views of the night sky. At the Hill Country Alliance, we have a whole program focused on night skies, and outdoor light pollution is one of those forms of pollution that is so easy to fix. It's about pointing our outdoor lights where they're needed, shielding them, making sure that they're not blaring up into the sky. And that often is one of the first signs of new development in the Hill Country is they put up a big security light that's shining across the fence line.
Safety features of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's really about education and outreach, right? About helping folks understand that they can have outdoor lights. It's just about putting the light where it's needed so that folks can continue to enjoy the view of the Milky Way, which is something that really defines the Hill Country.
Yeah.
So,
well, look at all of the latest, the different moons that we've had here lately that we haven't had in forever and won't have for another, 10 or 15 years. And then the eclipse that's coming.
Yes.
And so imagine all of that without dark skies. But just the everyday, what was it, like 2 or 3 weeks ago when they had the meteor shower?
Yeah.
I was out at my mom's in West Texas, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, and there's no lights. And I was like, wow, it is so beautiful out here, but it's not any different than Fredericksburg. And I appreciate that really dark sky. And I don't think we always think about that stuff as a community member. And so what you're doing, it's like, I had no idea that the lights were shining up. I had no idea I could use a softer watt.
Yeah.
Or, pointing it down. So that's part of why I wanted to do the podcast so bad, because I'm like, I just want to help get information out that we just never had any idea was even there.
For sure. And it's so funny you saying, you don't even think about it. It's true for so many things. You don't even think about that spring that's never gone dry until it goes dry, until you lose it. You don't think about your view of the night sky until a new neighbor comes in and really kind of messes it up. And so we are all about how can we address, protect, and think about these things before that threat comes in that really causes you to be concerned for it.
Because once it's gone, I always heard back, and I had an old boss, he said it's so much easier to maintain than it is to start over, or recreate or scrap. And so that's always been mine.
Yeah.
Recognize it, maintain it, take care of it. And so, because once it's gone, a lot of times you can't get it back.
Yeah, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, for sure. And for the water resources in particular, it's like we do not want to see what a future is like where we are have overpumped our aquifer resources, where we've lost some of those iconic springs. The Hill Country was once known as the land of 1,100 springs. We have the headwaters of 12 of Texas's rivers here in these 17 counties. It is so important, not just to this region, but all the way to the Gulf of Mexico and those estuaries. And so we don't want to, get to a point where we're looking down the reality of what it's like without those waters.
Well, in the real estate world, your land is worth nothing without water. I mean, you can buy it here with water, and you can sell here without water. Your One Water publication has the horned toad on it, and as an old country girl too, growing up where those were many, and now they're few, and coming back, and then I see you have this landowner's guide. My job is to sell real estate and land, and sometimes people come in and buy land because they can, but they don't always know how to take care of it. So one of the things, and this kind of how I started getting to know you all at the organization, was to help put the consumer, pair them with someone who can help them learn how to be a steward of the land and what they need to do, because some people just don't know. They weren't raised on the land, and or maybe their spouse was, and now they're left with the land and they don't know what to do with it. So I'm looking at your landowner's guide. Tell me a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, for sure. So this is another resource that the Hill Country Alliance has put together that covers a little bit of everything from rainwater harvesting for use both outside and inside the home, to night skies, to also land stewardship, opportunities and challenges, funding sources. There are a lot of great resources out there. Another great thing about the Hill Country Alliance is that we are connected to a lot of the other nonprofit organizations that are really caring for and advancing landowner issues in the region. Real estate agents are the first point of contact for many people as they're coming into the region. So I applaud you for, encouraging new landowners to look for those resources, to get connected. Here locally, you've got the Native Plant Society. That's a great resource. The Hill Country chapter of Master Naturalists is a really good resource. I know that they do one-on-one land visits with landowners. We've got a land program at the Hill Country Alliance, so we can be a good resource as well. And really just encouraging that sense of curiosity, of figuring out what plans you have, what opportunities and challenges exist on your own property is a really good way to approach those first steps in land stewardship.
It's funny when you said just kind of like with the night sky or even some of the water conservation, sometimes we just don't know or we don't recognize. Grasses to me have been something that we didn't recognize were native, or even some of the trees and plants, because it's been here for so long. Some of us are not old enough. I'm plenty old, trust me. I'm just saying, you don't know what grasses sometimes are native and not native.
Yeah.
And I remember, having college buddies that was their what they were studying in school. And so I would help, what is this seed? What is this grass? And so I kind of learned from that, but it would never had occurred to me that these grasses aren't native. This tree is not native. And so getting back to that with the Native Plant Society and getting rid of these, I call them water suckers, and get back to the native and get those grasses back out there, which then also brings us more water back.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about finding those plants that are really resilient in the face of drought. Because the whole country, we're no stranger to drought here, right? This region has
No one's
experienced
protected from droughts.
exactly. This region has been experiencing droughts, and unfortunately, will continue. And in all likelihood, our droughts will get longer and more extreme in the future. And so, finding those plants that have kind of evolved here to survive those drought conditions. I really look to, I mean, there's lots of seed companies out there. I really like Native American Seed in Junction. It's right down the road from here as a great resource for really, resilient native Central Texas plant species. Just their website alone is a great resource for learning, let alone.
I'm gonna have to get some of that. Well, I guess it's stuff like that on your website where, it's been a minute since I gone on and haven't looked quite in that direction. But I guess a consumer or client can, buyer, seller, landowner, whatever, can go on there and find a lot of that information.
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of information on our website from some of the issue papers and reports that I brought with me today to, links to other organizations. We list our partners on there. So yeah, it's take a day to really explore every nook and cranny.
It's probably very in depth. Well, talking about your partners, let's talk about projects. What projects are on the forefront right now for you guys? I know you have probably a million, but pick a few for me and tell me some of your projects right now.
Yeah, so we've got some good ones right here in Fredericksburg. We are working with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department on a program called the Healthy Creeks Initiative. So that is a project that really got its start right here in Fredericksburg. And speaking of non-native plants, we've been working with landowners who are interested, who sign up. It's a voluntary program to treat Arundo Donax, which is also
in my house.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. I think that's how I first got connected with Clinton at the city. But Arundo Donax, also known as river cane or giant cane, if you have driven through town, you've seen it growing up in Town Creek and Barron's Creek predominantly, and there's some of it in the Pedernales River as well. So it's this really tall grass. It kind of looks like bamboo. It can grow from 10 to 20 feet tall, and it just grows up thick. So it displaces native plants and animals. It can really change the kind of morphology of the creek or river. It really likes growing up in those wet river regions. And so we work with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and then landowners throughout town to treat this plant. They use a topical herbicide. They do a really careful job to get it just on the plant, and usually it requires coming back multiple years. So the Hill Country Alliance has been working on that, helping to find landowners, let them know about the program, and then offering this free service.
That's one of those, who knew that was, I remember, to go back and why it's important. Why it was a topic at my house, because Clinton was in a leadership program with Fredericksburg or Gillespie County, and they chose to renovate a park, and this plant is growing all along the creek, and it became like this huge deal, and who knew? So had it not been for their in reaching out to the Alliance, we wouldn't be clearing out this thing, this nuisance. So I'm really excited, and that's another just a really good example of those partnerships and like connecting people, and then like letting the folks that know about it kind of take over and get that stuff out of here.
Yeah.
It's just so thick, and see the height that it can grow, and doesn't it kind of choke out all the good stuff?
Absolutely. It chokes out, it weaves this network of roots that really anchor it in and make it hard to get rid of. So the most important lesson is don't try and mow it, don't cut it yourself, because every point that a leaf attaches to that main stalk is another future plant. If it gets cut off and then floats downstream, that can re-root. Yeah.
It makes me nervous. So Any other projects we need to know about?
Yeah, another one that I'm really excited about, going back to the night skies, we do a lot of supporting of local community groups to just raise awareness about night skies protection and helps get the word out. And so there's a brand new Friends of the Night Sky. So the Gillespie County Friends of the Night Sky group, you can find them on Facebook. We support them. That's outside of the Hill Country Alliance. So that's a local, bunch of residents and landowners coming together. So I would encourage folks to look at them on Facebook.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Give me one more. You got one more?
Oh yeah, I got.
You've got like 10. Give me one.
Oh my gosh, I've got one. Yeah, how to pick just one.
Yeah, I know.
Well, another program that we're really excited about, we just kicked off this year, is our Leadership Institute, and Clinton is a part of that, and so is Councilwoman Kirchner from Fredericksburg. And this is just a new program that we kind of dreamed up a few years ago. We're really excited with how it's been, but we're bringing elected officials and key staff together from across the Hill Country to really talk about shared challenges and opportunities, to think through how we're growing, what's working in one community that may, work or be replicable in other communities. So we've got mayors, county judges, county commissioners, city council members from all across the Hill Country that are coming together once a month to talk about these issues and really find common ground.
I'm so jealous. I mean, I really, really am so jealous of the places that you guys have gone and been able to look at and hear from the landowners, and then the conversations between the different people and different towns and what's going on and what the struggles are. I'm not jealous of that part, but but as a realtor, I can't get enough knowledge. And from real estate, I think we, as realtors, we do band together and help each other. And so I was so proud that you guys are doing this, and that other elected officials and leaders are leaning on each other, and because we're all in it together. It all kind of runs together, and we got to protect these aquifers all the way around, and the night skies and all the plants, all of it.
For sure. Yeah, we can't do it on a one city or one county basis. Our rivers, our aquifers, our landscapes, and
neighbors are bigger. Your neighbors are they're far as far as you can reach.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. So it's been a great program. We're excited. We're just about to start recruiting for our next cohort. So we're hoping to recruit an equally exciting group of really passionate and committed leaders, which is what we found with this first group.
So are people, is it open to someone to apply, or are you kind of picking people that you want to, like you have some goals probably with leaders that are, make big decision makers? Is that kind of the role that, or the route you're taking right now?
Yeah. For right now, we're really targeting it towards those key decision makers, elected officials, kind of known leaders. But we have talked about how we would love to expand it to include, community leaders, local advocates, and volunteers. Having a real estate, realtor cohort would
Please put me down on the list.
You'll
put
be
me on your standby.
You'll be the first person
be an alternate.
we call when we have the Realtor Leadership Institute cohort.
Well, I'm lucky because, when Clinton gets home, he's so excited. He downloads a lot of the information to me and he just talks. And so I learn a lot through osmosis from him. But thank you for doing that. Like, that's such a great idea and a great way to get out there and help people.
Yeah, and it's so fun to celebrate the positives, because like we've said, it can feel overwhelming when you're looking at it getting drier and drier out there, and yet more and more people are moving. How are we gonna, what is this gonna look like in the future? It's easy to forget that there are great victories happening all across the region. A great example is in Wimberley. They just opened a year or two ago, the very first one water school in Texas. And we talk about it in this guidebook, where they are capturing all of their rainwater. They're recycling water within the building. They've really limited their water footprint by as much as 75% on a traditionally engineered building. Wow. And so it's examples like those that we need to just replicate across the region. Yeah. The solutions are out there.
Don't recreate the wheel. Just keep building off of what someone else has already proven to work.
Yeah.
There's so many projects I would love to hear about. I'm guessing a lot of those are just on the website. If somebody wants to hear more about them, they can sure go there.
Yeah, for sure. Our website is hillcountryalliance.org. You can find a lot of great resources there. We've got all the traditional social media, Instagram and Facebook.
I have a great email newsletter that comes out that I always read.
Great point.
Religiously.
Yeah. An easy way to get connected with what we're doing and what's going on in the region is clicking on that sign up, the newsletter link on our website. That's a really good way to just know more about, especially events. We're hosting 1 or 2 events a week and during busy season. So landowner potlucks, workshops, land stewardship. Yeah, we do a lot of that sort of thing. We organize a grassroots water advocates meeting that happens twice a year. And so that's another great opportunity for learning and connecting. Night skies groups. We're coming up. October is our official Hill Country Night Sky Month. So we'll be doing a bunch of star parties and events around that.
Star parties. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's probably been about 8 years ago when I met you, and I knew nothing about the organization, and I've been so happy with the growth. How many employees do you guys have now?
We're up to 11.
Really?
Yeah. So when I started,
that many. It's just 2, I think.
When I started, we had 2.5.
Okay. I was like, there's no way you had more than 2. So,
yeah. We've been really fortunate. We've found some just incredible folks. And like I said, we can't do our work alone, right? We depend on landowners, residents, other nonprofits. We are all about starting little flames, as one of my board members likes to say, and then fanning them to get them going on their own. The creation of Night Skies Friends groups is a great example.
Take the flame out.
I know, the flame, as I said that.
Or fan any flames right now. We're all very sensitive about fire.
Right, as I said that.
It's not the best drop of water in a bucket.
Exactly.
And the bucket's overflowing.
The bucket is definitely getting full.
We're going to have, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
So, well, you talked about October being Night Sky Month. What else is coming down the pipe this year? I know when I say year, I want to know past December, but what does the next 12 months look like for you guys?
Well, you mentioned the 2 eclipses. That's going to be huge for the Hill Country as a region and for our organization. We're helping to organize these eclipse roundtables. So we're hosting lunch and learn activities twice a month now. We've got the annular eclipse coming up real fast on October 14th. So that one will happen first. And then the total solar eclipse that's coming on April 8th, 2024. That's going to be a big deal for the Hill Country. We may remember 2017 was the last time that a total solar eclipse passed over the United States. And a lot of rural communities in particular saw their populations double for that one day of the eclipse. So we are anticipating a big influx of tourists coming from not only around the state, but around the country and even the world because of the likelihood that we'll have a good, bright, cloudless day on April 8th.
Well, you had said earlier how it's really important to look forward or be forward thinking with things that could be an issue. I really try to encourage folks that I talk to be mindful of what could happen with the eclipse. And I think these meetings that you guys are having is really good conversation to just try to get ahead. We don't know who all will come, what that'll look like, but talking about it before it gets here is really key.
Absolutely.
Especially as a landowner, what if people are on your land and some liability issues and stuff like that. So I encourage everyone to try to get in on at least 1 or 2 of your meetings. And
just, thinking about that and the kind of scary reality of the drought that we're in right now, there's some real concerns about stargazers or eclipse gazers who are just pulling over to the side of the road. And given our current fire risk, what that could mean in terms of likelihood for roadside fires just caused by people driving into the dry grass. So definitely a lot for landowners to think about.
Well, so much to think about here today. it's gone by so quickly, and I appreciate all the information. I'd love to have you back more often so we could talk more in depth about the projects that you're doing and maybe
Yeah.
get a little bit deeper into some of the topics. And maybe through the podcast, people could submit questions to us that we could then, talk more about. But we really will help push folks to your website and your social media. You gave the website, but give it to me one more time.
Sure.
Any phone numbers that you want to share?
Oh gosh, that's a good. I don't have.
Well,
our
we
phone
can
numbers
find it's fine. We'll find them on the website. Nobody knows phone numbers anymore.
I will say though, folks can definitely find contact information on our website for each of our program managers. So if you have a question about landowner grant programs, for example, you want to learn more about the Sarundo Donax, we've got our land program staff on there.
Nice. Yeah.
So hillcountryalliance.org is the website.
Okay.
You can email info@hillcountryalliance.org, and that's a good way we can direct questions to the appropriate staff that way. My email address is Katherine, KATHERINE, @hillcountryalliance.org. And so folks can feel free to reach out to me directly.
That's awesome. So
Cool.
any last thoughts you want to leave us with? No pressure, but
Yeah, that's a good question. We kind of talked about this a little bit, how daunting and overwhelming, and frankly, as a mom with 2 small kids, depressing this summer has been, feeling trapped inside my house with 2 youngsters. I just want to remind folks that I have a lot of optimism for the future of the Hill Country. Folks are moving here because they love this region. They love the natural resources, the dark skies, the rivers. And so they make great advocates for protecting those natural resources. For us, we each have a role to play in helping to advance these conversations, to raise questions, to support our community leaders in doing what needs to be done. There's some really exciting opportunities coming up in November. We've got the opportunity to support $1 billion for new state parks. And so that would really have a huge benefit to the Hill Country. So I want to leave on that note of optimism.
Well, I love your passion and thank you.
Thank you.
You excite me when you talk about all this. I can feel your love for your job and what you do. And thank you for sharing your family in this position that you have. And come back again.
For sure. Yeah, anytime. I would love to. This is fun.
All right. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Everything Real in Fredericksburg. Get more information about the Fredericksburg area and contact LeeAnn at labaileyrealestate.com.